Okay, chapter 9. The Inner Work, chapter 9, about to start here in just a second. Welcome back to book club. We are currently reading The Inner Work. Next is going to be The Four Agreements, all the way up to chapter 9. There's only 11 chapters in this book, but chapter 9 is hefty. So we're definitely going to get it as much read as possible. But I have a feeling there's a heavy possibility I will be needing to break it up into 2 segments. So, we will get started reading here in just a second. I'm going to check everywhere to make sure that we are live and ready on all platforms. I have hit the button on Instagram. All right, going good there. Very good. Facebook is going. YouTube is going. All right. Very good. Okay, my lovelies. We are on all platforms. Switch. Thank you. All right. Instagram and Facebook simultaneously. Hi, Lisa. Good to see you. Welcome. Hello, Lisa over on YouTube. I don't see anyone in Instagram yet. Hi, Deanna. Deanna over at Facebook. Good to see you. Welcome. Perfect. I got y'all's comments coming in. The only one I'm going to need to get a separate stream for is going to be Instagram, but no problemo. Happy Thursday, everybody. It's the abundant day. If you haven't yet, be sure to get that cinnamon blown into your front door so you can bring abundance in. So if you haven't done that yet, don't forget. Still Thursday in the States. There are other parts of the country where you are already in the future. And I thank y'all for tuning in as well. Be sure to let me know in the comments section where you're watching from. Have you been watching the entire time? Lisa, has your book come in yet? I think you said you had finished chapter 1, so obviously your book must be in. So I hope that you've been enjoying it. Um, Everybody else that has been reading along, I hope that you have also been enjoying the book. It is available, like I said, on YouTube or excuse me, on TikTok, and it's available on Amazon Prime. It is the least expensive on TikTok because I think, my person had purchased it for the entire thing shipped to his home for around $10, the book plus shipping, so amazing. Got distracted and you'll start again tomorrow? No problem. Luckily, we are posting and, these are recorded and posted, so you can catch up anytime you want. I have a feeling that as my channel grows, I will probably be picking this one up again. It is so good, and it's so important. It's very, very important. This basically teaches you how to heal. I say this all the time, work on your healing journey, raising your elevation, right? Doing the work to raise your vibration. It's all in this book. This book teaches you how to do that. It breaks it down in layman's terms, very simply, what the heck I'm even talking about. It's all right here. You're up to chapter 3? Yeah, it's so good. So you're meeting the mind right now. So you're in that energy right now of, so chapter 3, you're meeting the mind again. So pretty cool. I love it. Anytime I get distracted or if I feel yes, if I feel like I need a little pick me up or I need a little, what is it, a touchstone back to my grounding, back to reality from the 3D world, this book has been an amazing source. I'm loving it so much. So, all right. Very, very good. Hi, Grace. Welcome in. So we've got the whole gangs here. We've got Deanna, Lisa, Emily, Grace. I love it. Fan flippantastic. Thank y'all so much for being here. We're going to get started here in just a little bit. I just want to make sure I'm giving everybody ample time to show up. Again, we can always go back and rewatch because these will be posted. I'm doing Fantastic as always. How are you? Happy Thursday or Friday. Happy Friday, love. You're in the future. Grace here is in, uh, the continent down under. She is coming to us from the future. So happy Friday to you. Happy Thursday evening, everyone else. How are you doing? What's going on with you? You doing good? Getting ready for the weekend, everybody? Anybody have any big plans this weekend? Can y'all hear me okay? Also, I've been moving my microphone around, and I just wanna make sure that I'm not sounding weird or off. Nice. Yeah. Okay, cool. Very good. Alright, lovelies. Let's get started here in just a second. So, again, we're in chapter 9, all the way up to chapter 9 already. It's been an easy read. The 4 agreements is gonna go like that. It's gonna go real freaking fast, and then I gotta get the next book in, so oh boy. Let's see here. Alright. Okie dokie. Cool. I just got a notification that I'm live. Good for me to know that I am there, so I like it. Alright, so let's see. We're gonna get started here in just a second. Cool, we are live. Perfect. Okay, cool. Very good, my darlings. Let's get going because chapter 9 is heavy. Not heavy, like, as in a lot of, serious content, but it is the healing chapter, so it's big. It's a big, big, big chapter. There's a lot of content covered in this, so we're gonna get started. So Les Brown is opening up the chapter with a quote saying, "Accept responsibility for your life. Know that it is you who will get you to where you want to go. No one else. No one else will get you to where you wanna go, only you." This is accepting the responsibility, having accountability, integrity for the fact that you and you alone are in charge of your choices and decisions. You and you alone. It's a very, interesting game. Plenty of you have dated and been through a heartbreak or 2. Isn't it funny how this world is very interested in assigning blame and making sure that we are well aware of who is at fault. And then what? And then where do you go from there? Now that the fault has been assigned, what does that change? Does it change anything? Does it remove the issue? Does it make the problem go away? Does it stop it from ever happening again, right? So, to be realistic is to take accountability and to pull in focus and control back to self. Having the knowledge that it all starts and stops with you far as as far as your personal responsibility for choices, actions, and decisions, your feelings, assigning meaning to your feelings. Okay, here we go. The following chapters have been prepared for you to use as practical how-to guide throughout your inner work journey. So these are a practical how-to guide coming up here in the following chapters from now till the end. So each theme will be outlined to show common triggers, traumas, root programs, defense mechanisms, overall view of life, and how to heal them. Use these chapters to help you identify the themes of consciousness for yourself and build awareness of where you find yourself getting stuck. When exploring the wounded themes of consciousness, it is important to note that they represent layers of resistance to accepting our true nature of unconditional love. They represent who we are not. We are already and always have been loved and innocent. It is only the wounded themes of consciousness that blind us from this truth, like clouds blocking the sun. just illusions of something very apparent and blatantly obviously there. Alright. Alright, all the way from India. Oh, Reginaldo, thank you. Hello, welcome. Linda, cute, is that cute in español? Hablo poquito, los niños. Entiende que me diga los niños solamente. Muy pequeño español, yo sabe. Lo siento, back to the book. Because the themes of consciousness are a spectrum, there will be certain ones that you find your ego is more attached to than the others based on its conditioning. You'll also notice that there are certain things that you are at peace with already. It is possible for you to spend most of your time in a liberating theme, such as accountability or self motivation, but periodically still struggle with an unhealed wound of insecurity or judgment. You may also find that you experience different themes in different areas of your life. For example, acceptance in your career, but distrust when it comes to relationships and love. It is important to clarify that experiencing the wounded themes of consciousness is a natural part of being human, and none of them are better or worse than others. Allow yourself to be where you are with curiosity rather than judgment. Okay, so this is about being very inquisitive and wanting to learn, not wanting to acquire information to use, right? To use against anyone else. So this is not a weaponizing source of information. This is used so that you can get to know where these feelings are coming from and how to. Hi, nice to meet you, Sarah. Welcome. Welcome. Nice to know you. We're doing book club today, so I appreciate you. If you need to catch up, I've already done 1 through 8, and we're starting on chapter 9 right now. So just touching base, just going to keep the conversation going as we are reading. If anybody has any input at all to add, feel free to add it to the comments and we will touch on it. If anybody has anything at all, I'm down for it. Okay. All right, cool. So the curiosity rather than judgment. Judgment is one of our wounded themes of consciousness where we want to weaponize our knowledge, right, to help us feel superior or to feed our egos in some way, but that's not what this book is about. This is for curiosity. Feeling your feelings is fully feeling your feelings fully is what brings healing. Feeling your feelings fully. This brings about your suffering comes from stuck emotions, either through attachment and identification with them as who we think we are, or by bypassing and avoiding them. In fact, all defense mechanisms or side effects of reconciled wounds are created by either overcompensating to mask our pain or avoiding feeling our pain. As a final caveat, be compassionate with yourself regarding anything that you may discover, and remember that the ego is not personal and has been attaching itself to limitations innocently without knowing any better. You are not your ego's attachments and resistances. We are all in this together. You can do this. So the themes of wounding are going to be your 3D reality, self as a body, suffering, victim, abuser mentality, right? So your themes of wounding are insecurity, violation, inadequacy, distrust, loss, overwhelm, judgment, and rejection. I will let y'all have a look at this chart here. As we progress through each theme of consciousness, we may encourage you to evaluate the degree of exposure you may or may not have with each theme. Access the relevance, degree, and regularity you have with each theme's associated beliefs, traumas, triggers, or thoughts. Fill in your own spectrum of consciousness appropriately. How to fill out your spectrum of consciousness. Keep the theme blank if you feel you never spend time in its energy. Fill in the theme one node if you feel you rarely experience the accompanying beliefs, traumas, triggers, or thoughts. Fill in 2 nodes if you experience them sometimes. Fill in 3 nodes if you experience them often. And fill the theme in completely if you experiencing them consistently. So 0 through 4 will be never, rarely, sometimes, often, and consistently. And you will see here, I have done my homework. I have my own things going on, and My judgment is all the way filled out, and I wanna let y'all know I have a lot of Virgo in my chart, a lot. There's a lot of Virgo in my chart, and it's a lot of opinions, and I'm very helpful. There's acts of service, there's ways of doing things, it's meticulousness, it's organization, it's, oh god, it's a blessing and a curse. It really is. I'm an excellent coworker, but I am, opinionated. I got a lot of opinions. Very helpful. I did receive a tarot reading once, and he said, "Me to tell you that you are not judging people, you're just reading people." I felt elated, almost I felt, like I was being, not enabled, validated. There's the word. I was being validated by a consistent feeling of me picking up on energy and taking people into account and basically hearing some voice inside of me telling me somebody's story all the way through and then having some sort of a wrap assumption on people because of the story coming through. But it's my guides. It's my guide. But that's a difficult spot to be in, to decipher the difference between my ego and reading, right? And I do go too far sometimes with that. So there's an understanding of this. I have accountability for, me wanting to understand something or me, you know, assuming something about it and perceiving my own way based on somebody else's actions. So that's judgment. And I had to really get clear on that. It's a very interesting deciphering that I had to do. I had to really do a lot of deciphering to separate the 2 personally. Um, just a little sidebar of something that came to light with here. Myself. I have judgment, distrust. I feel inadequate a lot. I have insecurity. I'm worried of rejection. I've, experienced a lot of violation in my life. So, yeah, I would say the least attached I am, to my things and people and such is loss. Loss is my least affected theme is loss. And I have a feeling that has a lot to do with my rising fixed sign, that when I make up my mind's made up. So that helps a lot. Your chart, your upbringing, your programming, your deprogramming at your base level, this is all heavily influencing how you are, perceiving a lot of things happening around you throughout your life, interestingly enough. Okay. Hi, Jax. Good to see you. Welcome. Welcome, welcome. We got book club going on, starting on chapter 9. Feel free to catch up between then to now if need be, but we're going to continue here, chapter 9. So, if you prefer a printable spectrum of consciousness, you can download a copy at theinnerwork.com/media. Theinnerwork.com/media, and you can print off your very own and fill it out yourself for your spectrum of wounding, okay? So we have wound of rejection, so your trigger is rejection, your root program is that you're unlovable, right? And your primary emotion is shame. Your defense mechanism, overcompensating with narcissism, pathological lying, recklessness, megalomania, criminal behavior, and then, mhm. Okay. Sorry for the scammers interrupting book club. Just so you know, anybody reaching out to you on a live stream like this is an obvious scammer. No legitimate tarot reader needs to do this sort of thing, so be worried and be aware of people doing this, as they are obvious scammers. Okay. So we all get to take time out while we wait so I can take care of this group. Hang on. Perfect. Handled and taken care of. Gotcha. Alright, all handled. Sorry for that. What a So anyone that goes into anyone else's live and starts saying that they can read for you, they are a scammer. I don't even think it's the real person. It's somebody who's probably emailing you from some other country. It's not even that person, and they will copy paste somebody else's work and send it to you and try to get money from you for somebody else's work, so don't ever fall for them, just FYI. I have to continually say that. Sometimes y'all have to get scammed. Sometimes there's just that experience that you have to go through, but obviously that is somebody who is illegitimate and a liar and a fraud. So, okay, continuing. Traumas. Traumas with rejection are physical abuse, emotional, mental abuse, humiliation, racism and prejudice, religious religious severity, harassment, divorce, abandonment, poverty. Media choices is cancel culture, hate movements, crime, abuse, deviance, grotesque, and dark. So if you have a wound of rejection, you're very easily swayed to this type of media choice. These are traumas that you could have experienced, some of the interests that you could have, and it's not like you're performing these interests, you just have an interest in them, like, it fascinates you and you want to know about it. It's not saying that you would ever do it, it just means that it's nothing that makes you squeamish or uncomfortable, you don't shy away from it, okay? So, nihilism, atheism, superiority and power, moral extremity, anarchy, okay? So defense mechanism avoidance are suicidal ideation, so unaliving isolation, low self-esteem, psychosis, schizophrenia, drug abuse and alcohol, self-harming, and self-deprecation. Physical manifestation example, acne, through self-rejection, anorexia through self-hatred, thyroid through shame, yeast infection through self-denial, seizures through rejecting reality, and upper back pain through feeling rejected. So approach to challenges, seek to destroy, seek to hurt, self-harm, lose control, gaslight, denial. So these are all pieces that surround the wound of rejection. Thoughts of this are I am unworthy of love. I am not good enough. Everyone rejects me. I am ugly. I hate myself, my life. What it's teaching us is rejection of abuse endured, and it's teaching us boundaries. So the healing part of this is I am innocent. I was projected onto. So if you were abused, if you were given this. So, affirmations. It is healthy for me to identify abuse. I give this shame back to its sender. I am always worthy of love. I matter. My life matters, and boundaries are healthy. Alright. So, your overview here for the wound of rejection. The most extreme of the mind's destructive beliefs is the delusion of shame. Shame stems from the lie that we are rejected, invalid, and beyond the graces of love and forgiveness. It believes itself to be unlovable, unwanted, a waste, and destined for an existence of suffering. Rejection represents the complete opposite of the truth and its ultimate forgetfulness of who we truly are. It can range from mild embarrassment, repression of our sexuality, racism, prejudice, all the way to feeling like the epitome of evil and cursed and rejected by divinity or God. The mind's story of shame is most likely stemming from a past experience of being rejected, abused, or neglected to some degree by a supposed loving figure, usually parents, society, or religion. Our innocent mind then believes itself to not be worthy of love and should be embarrassed and ashamed of itself for a particular aspect of the human condition that it's being rejected. For example, religion, race, ethnicity, gender, or sexual orientation. In its mild form, rejection is taught to us by parents, friends, or society by telling us what we're allowed to be or not to be. It is molded through mocking our skin color, hairstyle, dress, or appearance, unique gifts, personality traits, etc., To our impressionable mind, this teaches us that our innocent self should be different from what it is, thus making us feel ashamed for being ourselves. Racism and all forms of discrimination are rooted in shame. Anyone who has suffered the trauma of direct or systematic racism will unfortunately have wounds in this vein. In religion, rejection may come from being taught to fear God and divinity, and that God can reject, curse, and damn us to a fiery hell of torture. The misunderstanding that this causes us to believe that even an all-loving God could reject us, thus creating an overwhelming feeling of worthlessness. However, nothing could be further from the truth. Divinity's love is unconditional and always available. It's only the ego's rejection of this unconditional love that it entraps and limits us and spreads the message of rejecting divinity. About boundaries today? Beautiful. Yay. Hi, Gail. Good to see you. It's been forever. Welcome. So good to see you. Grace, that's fantastic. There's a lot to be taught when it comes to our youth, and I always think back to that question, like, a lot of people who live in a lot of regret over the way things happened before, they're like, "Don't you wish you could go back with everything that you knew now?" A lot of times we get that opportunity through children, through guiding the next generation with our experience, so there's an opportunity to not be missed here, and it looks like you are facing it head on. I love that for you. Okay. Mm, mm, mm. The mind story of shame is most likely stemming from a past experience of being rejected, abused, or neglected to some degree by a supposed loving figure, usually parents, society, or religion. Oh, I already read that. Wounds in this theme. Okay. Where am I? Oh, further from the truth. Huzzah! I found it. Sorry. Divinity's love is unconditional and always available. It's only the ego's rejection of this unconditional love that entraps and limits us and spreads the message of a rejecting divinity. Through a trauma of rejection, the ego becomes attached to the belief of worthlessness and identifies with it. The mind then proceeds to push away anything that is loving and promoting innocence out of fear of being rejected by it again. Ooh-wee. This wound then so this is the kind of people who will refuse compliments or will talk you out of giving somebody a compliment. If somebody says, "Oh, I love" I'll get this all the time, "I love your hair." I'm like, "Yeah, well, it's a lot of work and it's heavy," and, I'll just downplay it versus just saying, "Thank you, I appreciate that." Accepting it versus just trying to send it back or downplay it or make somebody else feel good by talking myself down is a lot of times what I'll try to do. And this is, a theme for me. This is from a past experience where I've always felt like I needed to be lifted up. So I make it a point for me to go around and try to do that for other people out of a wounded theme, interestingly enough. Ooh, this wound, when taken to its extreme, drives all grotesque experiences of life, unaliving yourself, murder, genocide, rape, hate crimes, torture, etc. When it's taken to its extreme. The ego in this one believes itself to be above the law and rules don't apply to it because it is an exception. In a twisted form of narcissism, the ego of shame tests divine love by becoming completely vile in order to see if it will still be lovable. In this distortion, rejection and trauma equal love. It therefore feels that it is love through hurting others and deriving a sense of meaning, power, and worth because it can cause pain. I've always said this, that I felt like, the reason why a lot of people will go to that theme of attachment to anger is a way to control a situation where you feel powerless. And so a lot of people act out in anger and aggression in order to gain and take back control over the situation by being forceful, by being assertive, by being aggressive. It's interesting. Thus, rejection represents the ego's desperation and cry for love by ironically trying to prove how unloved it actually is, or it is trying to be. To overcompensate for the wound of rejection, it is possible to outwardly appear charismatic, charming, or perfect while secretly holding incredibly dark, selfish thoughts and hidden behavior. For example, the charismatic psychopath or megalomaniac. The revealing feature of such presentations is that the ego cannot handle having its impulses blocked and will resort to extreme self deprecating behavior, such as hurting itself or others, as an expression of thinking God or life is cursing it. It will reject all accountability and believes that any of its hurtful and unloving impulses should be loved and allowed without consequence. I've heard this before. I've heard a lot of people will try to weaponize God's words as a reason for bad behavior and an excuse to be accepted and received and basically excuse this bad behavior no matter what. Unconditional love, right? It's when you think about it though, love has conditions. We put conditions on our person, right? We expect loyalty. We expect them to respect us. We have certain expectations, therefore putting conditions on our person. We expect communication. We expect to be, considered whenever, plans are being made, right? So there are certain conditions. When we have children, we expect them to respect us. We expect them to take our teachings and to listen to us, right? Um, there's expectations. Now, a lot of times those have nothing to do with love, but it definitely makes a dent in somebody accepting you or not accepting you. It definitely has some sort of an impact on the relationship. It definitely does. Okay. Very interesting. Except to accept crap. Totally. Realize what happened to you because your parents taught you nothing, see? And here's the thing, Grace, is that they probably also themselves knew nothing. So they were probably doing their level best. I realized this a lot whenever I got older and started to obtain my own information, and I went back and looked at things. I realized, we were all kids raising kids, basically. Um, I have to cut them a lot of slack for doing the best they could, and then I looked at their experience that they were raised in, and, you know, we just gotta kind of recognize and try our level best to change and do better. It's always about trying to do better than what was done before us and being better than you were yesterday. Mm, this without consequence is a real stickler. It's a real stickler, interestingly enough, so it's a deal here for you and you for me. Totally a deal. Yeah, really. So, however, because this is a theme of complete spiritual delusion, the most painful consequences stem from attachment to the wound of rejection. The ego tends to get itself rejected due to shameful choices. This creates a validation cycle of self rejection and rejection from others. It is important to address any wounds of rejection we may be holding on to, no matter how insignificant we may feel they are, because the energy of shame is like a festering sore which slowly decays the soul if left unhealed. The triggers. The wound of rejection will be triggered by anything traumatic, abusive, humiliating, or degrading. It is the theme of extreme trauma and the darkest human experience. While not all of us may struggle with its extreme expression, we may experience rejection subtly in our subconscious, usually in the expression of embarrassment or any form of self rejection, such as not liking our body. Accompanying thoughts may sound like, I am not good enough. God or life has cursed me. I'm so stupid. I'm incapable. I'm worthless. No one loves me. Everyone rejects me. I'm pathetic. I'm awful. I'm disgusting. I shouldn't have been born. I shouldn't be this way. God can't possibly love me. I will never be forgiven. I can't possibly still be lovable. I am evil, I am ugly, I am fat, I am vile, I am so sick, I am demented, I am lost. If projecting externally, the same thoughts will arise. They are so disgusting, ugly, worthless, and so on. Mhm. So anything that we are experiencing is something that we will ultimately, without a doubt, end up projecting outside of us. So anything and you can take this with a grain of salt, when people come up to you and they start insulting you, I think about this a lot. People start piling up on me and trying to insult me for raising vibrations or spreading healing vibrations. They're projecting their inner wounds onto me and trying to bring me down and take me down a level. This is traumatic projection. This is people trying to bring me down to their level, right? And this is, um, this is all of that negativity inside that gets sent to any single target they deem worthy of receiving it, okay? So healing this due to the traumatic experiences the wound of rejection is usually spawned from, it can be extremely difficult to talk about or face. Thus, out of defense, the mind denies, buries, and represses incidents of rejection, ultimately rejecting reality. This is due to internalizing trauma or shame rather than seeing it as a projection of the other person's stream of consciousness. The rejection we experienced from others is not personal nor true. The wound of rejection is only ignorance begetting ignorance, hurt people hurting people. And because it is ignorance that creates rejection, everyone involved is actually innocent. This does not mean an abuser's actions weren't a violation and don't need to be held accountable. It's a reminder that any trauma can only come from a traumatized source. To let go of the wound of rejection and heal from its abuse, we have to replace it with compassionate understanding for ourselves and others. Breathing in, fantastic. Going back. Okay. Those who are rejected, traumatized, abused, or hurt are only projecting their own rejections, traumas, abuse, or hurt. Our impressionable mind then made these painful projections about us, but it was never about us. We were and always are innocent. The wound of rejection subsequently repeats cycles of abuse that were handed down to it. Thus, abused people tend to abuse others. To heal our traumas need to be put in our past as something that does not negatively define us. So our traumas, they need to be put in our past. They do not negatively define us. This is a reprogramming of your thinking, of your state of consciousness. If we don't, similar scenarios as the original trauma will trigger the mind to think the trauma is still happening right now, thus stealing our presence as well. There needs to be a clear separation between what happened in the past and our new experiences. Otherwise, we carry the trauma with us forever. For example, PTSD. Our innocence is still there and can never be taken, only temporarily hidden due to misidentification with the trauma of an experience. It is important to acknowledge the cycle so as to not go another day internalizing the rejection others projected onto us. We have to give it back in a sense. See the pain of the other person clearly. They have been rejected, abused, traumatized, or hurt, and tried to pass it on to us, but we don't have to accept it. Therefore, we are their greatest teacher and mirror, only reflecting what is being rejected within themselves. We are infinitely and unconditionally loved, even if those around us don't know how to properly express it and ended up hurting us traumatically instead. To escape shame, the mind needs to cast blame onto its perpetrators in order to stop identifying with the energy of the experience. Setting healthy boundaries with our abusers is also necessary. And while this can temporarily move us out of self sabotage and into the next game of judgment, it is not the final solution. Whatever rejection we have felt due to others' projections, know that they are living with that same rejection themselves, probably even worse. They are not getting away with anything. Our ultimate healing will eventually come through forgiving all those who wronged us in the past, therefore setting ourselves free. This will naturally arise later in our journey, for when we hold a grudge, we remain trapped in the cycles of rejection. In order to remember our own innocence, we also have to remember theirs. For as we do unto others, we do unto ourselves. While this may seem impossible at the moment, the freedom that comes through forgiving ourselves and others will naturally reveal itself as we transition through the themes of consciousness. We can also heal the wound of rejection by helping and supporting others who have similar experiences. The greatest healers are ones who have endured suffering and turned their own traumatic experiences into wisdom for others' healing. Healed people heal people. New narrative. I am innocent. I am always loved. I can never be beyond divinity's love. I am pure. I am perfect as I am. I am always worthy of forgiveness and love. I am whole and complete exactly as I am. I am loved even in my weakest moments. Others' opinions of me have nothing to do with me, but a reflection of themselves. Boundaries are healthy. Hi, Zen. Anyone projecting shame is living with their own shame. I give this shame back to its sender. It's healthy for me to identify my abusers. It's healthy for me to have boundaries with abusive people. I let go of the shame projected onto me. I love myself. I am divinely beautiful. I am loved as I am, even with the traumatic experiences I have endured. My trauma does not negatively define me. I am accepted. Others want to love me. Others want to support me. Others want to see me happy. I matter to others. My existence matters. My life matters. My needs matter. My voice matters. I will not allow abuse any longer. I will speak my truth. I will accept my worth. Bing. Wound of judgment. So, judgment, the triggers, perceived mistakes. The root program is I am wrong or others are wrong, right? The sense of wrongness, traumas, parental judgment, religious punishment, arbitrary punishments, scolding, spanking, public punishment, choices as a reflection of worthiness of love, sexual repression. Primary emotion is guilt. So, defense mechanism, overcompensating, perfectionist, OCD, black and white thinking, harshly critical, addictions, bipolar. Media choices are political, religious, polarizing, and guilty pleasures. Interests and values, right and wrong, good and bad, politics and religion, punishment and judgment, righteousness. So your defense mechanism avoidant are blunted emotions, repressed desires, indecisive, insecurity, people pleasing, self punishing, prude. Physical manifestation examples canker sores, judging others, STDs, sexual guilt, liver problems, harsh criticism, urinary infection, casting blame, gallstones, guilting others, growths, holding grudges. Approach to challenges blame, project, harsh judgment, self punishment, condemn, and criticize. Thoughts: I should have known better. They should be punished. I am wrong. They are wrong. This is unforgivable. I am being punished. Healing: replace judgment with natural consequence. What it's teaching us: reflection on choices and general remorse and learning. Affirmations: it's okay to make mistakes. I am doing my best. I am always learning. Natural consequences are not personal. Overview. So, in order to heal from the wound of rejection, we must see that its distortion was projected onto us. Support points, very stress, pros on cool. Yes. Yep. Very hard to stay cool. Extremely. Hi, Valerie. Good to see you. Welcome. Welcome, welcome. Okay. Wow. Okay. Thus, the mind has to give the rejection back to its sender, which leads to judgment. The result of judgment, however, is guilt, which is why they go hand in hand. The main difference between the wound of rejection and the wound of judgment is that rejection is about rejecting our fundamental sense of self as unlovable, while judgment is preoccupied with the choice of punishment and wrong. While this theme of consciousness is still wounded, it is nevertheless a progression in empowerment out of self rejection and victimization of shame that rejects accountability and consequences. Healthy expressions of judgment cause us to learn from our mistakes so as to not repeat them. However, when it becomes an obsession of the mind, it is destructive, cruel, and harsh. The limiting beliefs of judgment do not allow joy into our lives because the standards for reaching or maintaining perfection are impossible and unrealistic. Judgment is a self imposed mental and spiritual torture in which we hold ourselves and others accountable to impossible standards. It pours salt in the wound and holds a crushing weight over us. Judgment doesn't let the past go, holds a grudge, and is unable to forgive itself or others. It clings to the flawed rationalization that we should all be perfect or should know better. Any perception of a mistake is unacceptable. Judgment is obsessed with should and should not, right and wrong, good and bad. All of these are defense mechanisms of the ego that it uses to protect itself from ever being hurt again, accidentally becoming the new source of its pain. The root triggering belief behind all judgment stems from misunderstanding the difference between judgment and consequence. Judgment is partial, bias, and can only come from a limited, arbitrary perspective. Meanwhile, consequence is impartial, unconditional, and simply a natural, unbiased repercussion of making a choice. Judgment has been used as a force of manipulation for eons through creating gods of judgment and wrath that we have to please, plead with, and seek forgiveness from, or else. All of its projection of our own ego mind's fears and fantasies of self rejection. None of it is actually happening except in our own mind. The ego's guilt creates its own demons to fear judgment from and then projects them as coming from outside of itself, especially in the form of religious misunderstandings of God. So a lot of people will take God and put it outside of you and treat it as if it is something that you should be fearful of and that you should bow down and obey and that it is something that will punish you. This is something that takes a very loving, divine energy and twists it into a form of manipulation. This is a form of manipulating you into performing a certain way based on right and wrong. Somewhere in our lives, this belief of judgment and therefore guilt was inherited through the form of limitation as a way of making us afraid of any sense of error. For example, being beaten, hurt, or threatened as punishment for doing something wrong. Intellectually, it manifests as a fear of being seen as stupid or less than for making mistakes. While the intentions of parents, teachers, or religions may have been loving and innocent, unfortunately, the concept of judgment is flawed from the beginning and will only bring suffering. For judgment itself is another ego delusion, just like the shame and guilt it propagates. Triggers. Due to the ego mind's obsession with wrongness, all triggers associated with judgment will have to do with perceived mistakes. The ego may also overcompensate through obsession with being perfect in order to avoid or hide guilt. Hi, Philip. Welcome. Good to see you. Glad you're here for book club. Reading through chapter 9 right now. Welcome, welcome. Its standards for everyday life will become impossible and unrealistic. No one will ever meet them. It will be staunch and brutal in its judgments of itself, others, and any perceived errors it projects onto, even judging the weather for what it should or shouldn't be. Accompanying thoughts will be overly critical and unforgiving. Examples may sound like, I should have known better. They should have known better. This is wrong. You are wrong. They are wrong. This is unacceptable. I deserve to be punished. I, they, or this is wrong for being this way. This is unforgivable. How could they? I hate sin. I hate evil. Sin, evil is wrong and shouldn't exist. They should be punished. I hate hypocrisy. There needs to be justice. This is so unjust. They broke the agreement. They disobeyed. This is immoral. I hate the unjust. Healing. The only way to heal the wound of judgment is to surrender and admit that, as humans, we are not capable of making accurate judgments. Isn't that interesting? As a human being, you're not even capable of making an accurate judgment. It's impossible. Our perception is limited. It is. The limited human mind has no idea why things are the way they are. No idea. No clue. None. It cannot grasp the infinite details of the universe and the eternal scale of existence, and so must give up thinking it is capable of judging anything appropriately. Humility is the ultimate healer for this theme by surrendering the role of playing the judge. Humility arises from accepting that we can't hold ourselves accountable for something we literally did not know at the time of our choice. Just because we understand the repercussions of our choices now does not mean we understood them accurately at the time of the choice. We are not capable of knowing the future and the infinite details of every choice we make. Lastly, even if we knew the wiser choice in the moment, we may have still lacked the strength and conviction to actually choose the higher choice. Thus, we are always doing the best we can with what we are capable of doing at the time. Luckily, divine's love compassion divine love's compassion is unconditional. Because we are always innocent and unconditionally loved by divinity, we are the only ones holding on to guilt. No one else is keeping tally. Everyone experiences the natural consequences of their own choices and determines their own eternal destiny through their spiritual free will. From a higher perspective, there is nothing to actually forgive, and we are all innocent. In a universe that is all connected and an extension of the same source, we are all the same one. And therefore, to judge anything or anyone is to only judge ourselves. There is no judgment necessary in a universe that is innately perfect, balanced, and always harmonious. Consequence is eternally unfolding in every moment. It's not, it is only our limited point of view that creates judgment and perceives wrongness or lack. Judgment is a perfect example of the mind creating enemies that don't actually exist. The spiritual truth that judgment impersonates is actually consequence. Consequence just is. It is the natural repercussion of any choice or action. It doesn't require judgment. It is impartial and unbiased, like gravity. There is no, excuse me, therefore, to make destructive choices is to attract to oneself destructive consequences. This is what all spiritual teachings are trying to convey. All choices have consequences, not judgment. Ironically, the consequence of judging another is to be subject to the torment of our own judgments. To project negativity onto others is to only attract the reciprocal negativity to ourselves. This happens. This is very true. To believe in enemies is to make enemies. To condemn others is to condemn ourselves. The most empowered choice is to do our own inner work and to take accountability for our own choices and stop worrying about others' actions. Whew. Basically, wow. This is the equivalent, to, do you gotta have a comment to say something, or could you just simply scroll on, right? It comes back to that sort of thing. Um, do we need to worry ourselves so much about what everybody else is thinking, doing, saying, feeling, whatever, when you have a lot of your own things that you need to be dealing with on your own? How egoic of us to feel like we need to take on the responsibilities of every single person surrounding us and teach and help and guide and show them how to think, feel, talk, speak, act, and work. How egoic, how positively egoic, casting judgment. Let them work out their own destiny. All we have to do is focus on our own responses to life and the consequences they are creating for us. We are the only ones responsible for our spiritual destiny. Judgment, guilt, and blame bring only suffering. The unconditional, infinite love of life responds equitably to our own choices, equitably to our own choices, and we are all eternally free to choose for ourselves. Thus, if we resist love, we suffer. If we accept love, we enjoy. Worry about yourself. Yes, exactly. Holding up a mirror. Yep, exactly. All guilt can be washed away in an instant if we could only accept our innocence and humility as humans. We are completely loved even when we make mistakes, which is so simple. It is hard for the ego mind to accept. Instead, the mind fantasizes that in order to heal our guilt, we must be punished or make some sort of sacrifice in order to be forgiven. This is not the absolute truth, but is only a projection of how guilt views reality. Okay. So this is that guilt, right? The guilting and the shaming and the perception of a very grave punishment coming, right? This is judgment. You're being warned and told that, there's consequences. And there are consequences, but the judgment that comes with that is perceived. It's only perceived and it cannot sustain actually. There's no real validity behind any of it when you stop and think about it. So, this is not the absolute truth, but is only a projection of how guilt views reality. From a more liberated, loving perspective, we do not need to earn forgiveness or love back. We are innately loved and forgiven in every moment. We just need to stop resisting it. All perceived mistakes, imperfection, or sin is only a reflection of innocent misunderstanding at the time, and a natural consequence will follow every choice. Natural consequence follows every single choice, every single action. For every action, there is a reaction, right? This is physics. There is a perfect accountability. There is perfect accountability and justice in the universe. There is no need for additional guilt that is self destructive and causes even more suffering for self and others. Divine love is ever present and internally flowing without condition or requirement. We all we must do is remember, allow, and accept it. We can let go of guilt by inviting a higher perspective of humility for our own limitations. We are always doing the best we can with what we know and need not hold judgment over ourselves any longer. Focus solely on the present, what you can learn from your choices, and let the past go. Through consequence, we are deciding our new life trajectory in every new moment. And even as we make mistakes, we are always learning and recreating anew. Now is the only moment that actually exists. The past is not who we are anymore. We do not have to continue to drag it with us. The past is not who we are anymore. Continuing to drag that around with us, always recreating that energy in the present moment is self torture. This is completely um, signing up voluntarily every single day to continue to drink that same old poison and hoping and praying that somebody else around us is gonna suffer for this. Now is the only moment that exists. The past is not who we are anymore. The the way to transcend guilt and judgment is to let go of playing judge and allow natural consequences to unfold. Stop trying to play judge. Everybody out there wants to be the jury, the judge, and the executioner, and it's not your place. It's not your place. You're exhausting yourself and, basically assigning yourself for more responsibilities than are for you. These are not for you. Consequence will naturally take care of everything. You're intruding, basically, whenever you're trying to have some sort of influence or, um, sway in this movement whatsoever, even if those consequences feel overwhelming to face. Find the lesson in the choice made and move forward implementing the newfound wisdom. Decide right now to become more loving, more forgiving, and more compassionate, and it will be so. Invite and allow more love for yourself. Let the burden of guilt go. New narrative. I guess I just didn't know any better at the time. Seemed like a good idea at the time. I'm always in the process of becoming. I am doing the best I can right now. Others are always doing the best that they can. I don't know someone else's story. I don't know the battles other people are facing. I don't know how deep this goes. I don't know the internal scale of this situation. Everyone is doing the best they can with what they know. I grow through my mistakes. I am loved even as I make mistakes. God loves me. I am not wrong, only learning. I forgive myself and others. I am not my mistakes. I let go of grudges. I am perfect, whole, and complete even with my perceived mistakes. Mistakes are a part of the learning process. It's okay to make mistakes. It's okay for others to make mistakes. While my actions may have painful consequences, my soul is always innocent while learning. Hmm. The past is not past. Law of correspondence could be. Fear and hate was the lowest vibration. It seems like guilt and shame. Very true. Guilt and shame is, yes, that is a very self-deprecating, pretty much. Fear and hate is an outward expression, and guilt and shame are an inward, turmoil that you're experiencing, and you're beating yourself up. It's the worst kind of pain you can have, is, dragging yourself through your own mental hell over and over again versus trying to, um, enforce somebody else to go through this with you, right? It's, because they may or may not sign up with you, but ultimately you are the one who's going to be going through that no matter what. So game and shield, shame and guilt, shame and shield. Shame and guilt are, self-deprecating. It's like self-harm. It's a very powerful, observation there. Okay. Wound of overwhelm. So the trigger is inability to cope and overwhelm. So the root program is what's the point? Traumas, age appropriate responsibilities, abuse, life altering loss and change, overwhelmed circumstances, compounded negative consequences, and poverty. Primary emotion is hopelessness. Defense mechanism overcompensating is refusing to ask for help. I do that. Say yes even though they don't have the capacity. I do that. Denial of limits. Yep. Self-sacrificing. Yep. 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 Media choices, apathetic, nihilistic, sad stories, melodramas, depressive. Mhm. Defense mechanisms, avoidance are depression, disassociation disorders, detachment, isolation, anxiety, PTSD, catatonia, numbness. Interests and values are the struggle of life, burden of obligations, and disempowerment. Physical manifestation examples: adrenal problems for hopelessness, colds, overstimulated, overstressed, gastritis, overwhelmed about future, rounded shoulders, carrying too much, pneumonia, exhausted by life, approach to challenges, shut down, detach, abandon hope, take on more than they can handle, mental, physical breakdown. Thoughts, why bother? It's too much. I am incapable. I am a burden. Nothing will work. Healing, allow feelings and ask for help. What it's teaching us, realizing your limits, humility, to ask for help from others or a higher power. Affirmations, I accept help. To feel is to heal. There is a way out. God and divinity will help me. This will pass. So the overview. As consciousness heals from rejection and judgment, we may become apathetic and numb towards our situation because it seems too overwhelming to feel the weight of our choices or someone else's. While this is still obviously a limiting energy state, it is at least not preoccupied with hating and tearing itself and others down through judgment and rejection. Thus, overwhelm blocks the unpleasant emotions of sadness or pain but also doesn't let itself be hopeful or optimistic about life either. Instead, overwhelm has now just given up altogether and doesn't know how to help itself. It has become all too much. It has all become too much. As a defense mechanism to cope with the overwhelm of life's tasks, facing consequences, past traumas, shame, or guilt, we may resort to a flat affect, a detachment to life, a lack of care or interest, boredom, and rejection of participation. In this state, we are not necessarily able to make a change, but we also don't have the energy to keep destroying our life. We just don't care at all. To the ego mind trapped in overwhelm, everything is pointless and nothing matters anymore. All common root beliefs that reinforce overwhelm will be regarding an inability to face reality, to take action and experience the consequences, or to feel our true emotions. Triggers. Overwhelm may be triggered by any trauma, such as the loss of our sexual innocence, a spouse, a job, money, parents getting a divorce, parents dying, or getting in an accident and losing physical abilities. It can even be triggered by dwelling on the loss of time in our lives that we spent trapped in the wounds of rejection and judgment. Thus, it now seems pointless and too late to change now. Any loss that we are unable to cope with might trigger the mind to formulate an attachment to how hopeless life is. The ego mind won't want to do anything to seek change and instead only complain and wallow. It is the epitome of a stick in the mud. In the response to any solution, it will revert to thinking, why bother? Everything feels too overwhelming. In extreme cases, the ego stuck in overwhelm will refuse to eat or take care of itself and may even become catatonic. The wound of overwhelm is apathetic and feels nothing as a way of coping. Accompanying thoughts of overwhelm are things like, oh, it's too much. I just can't do it. I will probably just fail. It will probably all fall apart eventually. I'm incapable. I'm a burden. No one wants to help me. I'm an inconvenience. God doesn't care about me. Just leave me. Abandon hope. God won't help me. I'm dead weight. It's impossible. The odds are too against me. I shouldn't even try. There's no point. Nothing will work. It's hopeless. What's the point? I can't possibly face this. I feel nothing. I don't care. Healing. The avoidance of sadness and the inability to ask for help is what perpetrates overwhelm. To heal the wound of overwhelm, we need to allow ourselves to feel and face heavy emotions of grief and loss, which are natural to life. Accepting the weight of life's losses or the consequences of our self destructive habits can be overwhelming, yet is necessary in order to move forward in our healing and awaken our true power of a spiritual will. While the themes of judgment and rejection project blame for their situation, overwhelm is paralyzed at the thought of having to take accountability and own its responses to life's circumstances. Thus, transition may require assistance from a higher energy field to help the mind shift into the beginning of building or rebuilding its self esteem. We may need to call upon others for support, such as counseling, religious guidance, or the camaraderie of a friendship or an anonymous group. Spiritually, we must invite and ask a higher power to give us strength and courage in order to face our situation. This invitation is essential because hopelessness, in and of itself, cannot possibly move forward on its own. To heal the wound of overwhelm, we must refrain our perception of loss in the form of facing it through allowing grief and asking for help, even if it's just to ask for encouragement and to be reminded that we can do this. Through our mere invitation and curiosity, we will find guidance out. We must all we must do is allow. There is nothing that needs to be done. Thinking that moving on its own, something arduous, will only reinforce overwhelm. Thinking that moving on is something arduous will only reinforce overwhelm. There we go. All we have to do is ask. That's it. It is the humble prayer of the contrite soul. God, if you exist, please help me through this. The how is not up to us. There is hope if we invite ourselves to see it. There is a light at the end of the tunnel. There is a way out. Anything can happen. We are never trapped and can always choose anew at any moment. Zen, you're funny. So your new narrative for this, I can ask for help. There is a way out. God divinity, give me strength. God divinity, help me. I accept help. I accept guidance. It's okay to not know what to do. Anything could happen. I accept miracles could happen. I am open. I allow myself to be sad. I allow myself to cry and grieve. To feel is to heal. I am going to be okay. I'm going to get through this. I can face this. This too shall pass. Others want to support me. I am not a burden. It's okay to not be okay. All will be revealed in due time. When I don't know what to do, I can ask for help. Zen has that hanging in his living room. This too shall pass. It's hanging up in his house. I've seen it. Okay. Wound of loss. Moving right along. We are trucking, baby. Look at us. Look at us. Yay. So we have this much right here of chapter 9. I'm just plowing through. All right, here we go. Trigger perceived loss. Root program is to resist change, traumas, death, loss of money, unreconciled past regret, painful unexpected change, any and all extreme losses, painful consequences from past choices, aging, primary emotion, grief, regret, defense mechanism, overcompensating, attachment disorders, hoarding, clinging, stuck in the past, hysterical, overly sentimental and dramatic. Media choices: tragic, melodramatic, romance, underdog stories, loss of love, defense mechanism avoidance, emotionally cold, calculated, lack of empathy, drug and alcohol abuse, denial of feelings and inability to cry. Interests and values, memories, past relationships, the good old days, what could have been, missed opportunities, world tragedies. This is one of the themes, by the way, where I was not that much. I had, like, 2, and I was being generous because I'm being realistic. Okay, so physical manifestation examples: colon, fear of loss, cramps, attachment, hands, clinging, lungs, sadness, unable to cope, heart issues, loss of love. Approach to challenges: dramatic or detached, focus on regrets rather than solutions. Don't do that. So thoughts, I always lose. I will never be the same. I can't believe I did that. I've lost so much. What a tragedy. Healing, face fear or impertinence and change. What it's teaching us, natural grieving process, mourning with gratitude for time we did get. Life is a gift. Impertinence adds to the depth of love. Impermanence adds to the depth of love. Knowing that something is temporary and you only have it for the brief moment, therefore you should cherish it and live in it as much as you possibly can. That energy of love, when you have it, you're supposed to just be of it and be so grateful for it and, um, swim in the depths of it, basically. So this is it's because it's temporary, it's just a moment, but this is what we're here for, right? Affirmations: I take nothing for granted. Impermanence adds richness to life. Change could be good. I face the fear of the unknown. I like the unknown. I like change. My moon's in the 8th house, my rising is Aquarius. I'm good with it. I'm detached. I have, let's see, I believe there's some really cool placements in my chart that help me with that help me to just kind of understand that everything is fluid, life is consistently changing. We are not really attached to anything except for our mission. Okay. Overview: once the stagnation of overwhelm is surrendered through the allowance of feelings and admittance of the need for help, the door will open to a higher theme of consciousness. Whereas in the wound of overwhelm, there is a detachment to life. Grief allows itself to feel the sadness that accompanies trauma, loss, painful consequence, or change. The wound of loss is natural to experience as we traverse through the transitions of life, but when grief becomes habitual, it's crippling. It can make us feel regretful, depressed, and melancholic, so melancholy, melancholic, right? lackadaisical, uninterested, um, lethargic, basically. Okay, if any of those words help you. When we live in the wound of loss, we become so tightly attached to the external world as a sense of identity that if anything changes, it triggers a deep sense of loss of self. Grief is a downside of the ego's mindness mentality because it attaches to that which is temporary. Thus, the ego in the wound of loss views all change as perpetual state of loss and lack. It only sees what it loses in each moment over what it is gaining. Therefore, we feel like we're always missing out and becoming regretful of our choices. Because of this, a common expression of grief is having a terrible time dealing with transitions. The ego mind, when stuck in the wound of loss, projects that any change, death, or loss should not have happened and therefore resists the flow of life, sulking or regretting. Grief may express itself as feeling abandoned by others, divinity, and life itself. This wound influences us to be attached, needy, and incapable of accepting that we will be okay despite circumstances constantly changing. So while we at least care about our life, which is a major step up from the numbness of overwhelm, we still tend to only focus on the tragic losses of life. The belief that reinforces the wound of loss will all have to do with attachment to our sense of identity to something outside of ourselves. So attaching our identity to our surroundings, right? I am a wife, I am a mother, I am a computer programmer, I am a security analyst, I am a tarot card reader, right? So we're taking ourselves and attaching it to something outside of us. Therefore, this is something that can be taken away. So there is a feeling of loss whenever something doesn't go the way we want it to or expect. And so we, in a sense, send ourselves through this traumatic experience through our ego perceptions, okay? The perceived loss is not about the actual thing itself, but rather is threatening the ego's livelihood. For example, life without the object of attachment. The common thread, therefore, will be a belief in our happiness, love, and sense of self as coming from out there. So our sense of love comes from outside of us. Our sense of belonging comes from outside of us. Our identity is something outside of us, right? That puts us in a chasing lack mentality automatically. This projection of value sets the ego up for inevitable loss and failure because life will always, always, always change. Nothing is constant except for change. Mm. The irony there. And nothing is permanent. By attaching ourselves, our sense of identity to something temporary and fleeting, we become regretful and experience the pain of remorse of life. So triggers, because of its overemphasis on loss, triggers for grief will arise for anything where loss is perceived, whether it be losing an inanimate object, such as a piece of favored jewelry, loss of time, loss of money or status, or of a loved one dying. All things having to do with attachment, abandonment, and codependency in relationships are signs of unhealed wounds with loss. All perceptions of loss and change will bring to the surface any attachments we have to the energy field of grief and regret. Ultimately, grief will be attached to whatever it is we value the most: our time, people we love, money, possessions, ideal circumstances, pleasures, etc. The ego, habitually living in the wound of loss, thinks and feels, "Oh, the pain of life, how tragic. I always lose. There is so much loss in the world. Who would I be without this? Why did they abandon me? Why did they leave me? Why did it all have to end? Others only want me when it's convenient for them and when they move on, and then they move on. I'll never be the same. I can't possibly move on. I can't believe I did that. That was a waste of money. I can't believe I broke that. I can't believe I lost that. I could have been it could have been different if blank. I probably made the wrong choice. This always happens to me. I shouldn't have listened to them. I missed out. Life is so sad and depressing without blank. People always abandon me. Those poor people. What a sad situation. They lost so much. Healing. To heal the wound of loss, we must face our fear of loss through accepting the inevitability of change and stepping into the fear of the unknown. All humanity experiences loss eventually. Nothing is permanent. All things shall pass. No one is immune. Instead of getting stuck in grief, invite yourself to see the constant change of life actually adds richness, gratitude, and profound awe for all that is temporal. The depth of significance, meaning, and preciousness of life is elevated through honoring the fleeting nature of all things, not diminished. When we accept change, we don't take life for granted and cherish it instead. Every moment is a sacred gift that we are not entitled to and is filled with far more passion and presence. Instead of seeing that all we lose in each moment, we instead affirm that we are also gaining in each new moment. For if things never cease to leave, it also means life never ceases to give. Thus, we can let go, knowing it all comes back around. Life keeps flowing. Nothing is permanent, including grief. All things have a season. Death and change are a natural part of the cycle of life. When we allow grief to flow through us without attachment, we fully experience what it means to be human, care for others, and appreciate the preciousness of life. The next level of transcendence is to release attachment to the external world as the source of our happiness and love. So the external world is not the source of your love. It is not the source of your joy. You choose it. You become it. You are it innately, perfectly, wholly, constantly. The ego perceives differently and takes over. The inner work teaches you how to get control over that. We are so harsh with ourselves. You're so right. The love and joy that we experience through people, places, and situations are actually coming from within us. This is a joy that we feel inside because of an experience that we're having, because of the bond with another person. That is a joy that is created inside of us. It's a feeling that comes from within. The external world is just providing us an opportunity to express that joy and love. The external world is only an opportunity for you to express love and joy. That's it. The perception of the loss itself is the actual limitation and source of suffering. In truth, no loss is possible. Ultimately, the fear we must face is the unknown of what life would be like without our grief and regret. Isn't that interesting to think about? What would life be like without grief and regret? And you think about how unappreciative some people are, how much some people take life for granted. This complete and total approach to life as if you demand it and you expect it to do for you. It's almost like walking around like a spoiled brat. Grief and regret definitely take us out of our ego heavily. The new narrative, this too shall pass, the good and the bad. The good and the bad. The good will also pass. It is not permanent. I am grateful for every moment that I get to enjoy. I take nothing for granted. Life is a gift. I am entitled to nothing. People, places, and experiences will come and go. I allow people the freedom to come in and out of my life and honor the precious time we have together. People are allowed to change their mind. I allow life to flow through me. I am present with this moment. Everything changes. I let go of my attachments. Things change for reasons I may never understand, but I trust in the goodness of life. I am excited for the transitions that come into my life. I look forward to change with optimism. I am grateful. No one can give me love. Love is within me. I am not afraid to be alone. Mhm. Very, very true. Okay, perfect. Okay. So we're moving into the wound of distrust now. So distrust. The trigger is the unknown, being unaware and not knowing what's coming in. The root program is what if it goes wrong? traumas, physical violence, religious trauma, manipulation and deceit, exposure to horror, doomsday culture, horrific accident, paranoid parenting. Primal emotion is fear. So that's the primary emotion is fear. Defense mechanism, overcompensating, daredevil, survivalist, adrenaline junkie, doomsday prepper, risk taker. Media choices are horror and thrillers, crime, survival death scenarios, world news, and catastrophes and end of the world. Defense mechanism avoidant, OCD, superstitious, phobias, anxiety, paranoia, insomnia, risk averse, stress related disorders. Interests and values, survival safety, risk, future to fear and prepare for worst case scenarios. Physical manifestation examples: breathing problems with paranoia, diarrhea with worry, foot problems, fear of moving forward in life, motion sickness, fear of not having control, lower back pain, fear of not having enough financially. Approach to challenges: fight, flight, and freeze, and fawn. Healing: what if the unknown future is desirable? Thoughts: what if it doesn't work out? What if I get hurt? People are out to get me. They have an ulterior motive. This is dangerous. Affirmations: what if everything works out? I will always know what to do in the moment. What if I can trust them? Anything is possible. What it's teaching us: healthy respect for caution. Healthy respect for caution. Okay. Ooh, look at how much left we've got. Doing so good. Okay. To heal the wound of loss, we make peace with pain and grief and accept that life is always going to change. However, this then brings up fear of the unknown. Thus, fear of an imaginary negative future becomes the new obsession of the mind. Anything can happen suddenly that is out of our control. People can let us down or hurt us, and life could drastically change at any moment. Accepting this drives the ego mind to become paralyzed with fear, fixate on avoiding fear, or become overly interested in testing the limits of fear. Thus, the wound of distrust pushes the ego to be overly concerned with distrust, survival, competition, enemies, and security. It's it is worth not noting it is worth noting that fear will actually feel like a source of energy and motivation in comparison to the previous themes, such as rejection or overwhelm. Because the wound of distrust triggers the fight or flight response to survive, we experience a rush of adrenaline, which is incredibly stimulating in comparison to the depressions of grief or hopelessness. Fear is motivated to escape or contend with its perceived threat in order to avoid pain or loss. Thus, this theme of consciousness feels more invested in life than previous themes. For example, you have to be invested in life to be afraid of losing it. Therefore, while the wound of distrust is still a negative theme overall, in relation to the previous themes, this will feel empowering and invigorating to survive, worry, or test the limits. The belief of distrust come from perceiving endless external enemies in the form of something or someone trying to take from it or hurt it. Yet, all enemies are projections of the mind's fear as the enemy. The ego mind of fear is extremely suspicious, protective, defensive, and insecure. Its core beliefs are rooted in seeking security and the illusionary promise of safety from loss. In order to attain that safety, it believes being anxious, paranoid, and doubtful will help. In its mild expression, it comes out in the form of social anxiety, fear of being lied to, fear of being abandoned, fear of being rejected, fear of failure, fear of loss, fear of getting sick, fear of injury, and fear of death. As an overcompensation to the fear of survival, we may overly expose ourselves to things that evoke fear, such as constantly watching frightening movies, being a daredevil, a survivalist, or thrill seeker, always tempting death, the ultimate fear. The adrenaline of fear can become highly addictive, and it's continuously experienced as it is continuously experienced, the brain becomes desensitized, thus pushing us to seek more dangerous and scary experiences to get the same rush. Inadvertently, we become addicted to stress. Triggers. The wound of distrust is triggered by fantasies of dreadful future that may never occur. While the wound of loss is obsessed with regret, the past, and what is already lost, fear is now obsessed with what could be lost. Therefore, fear swings to the other side of the spectrum, living in a hypothetical fantasy of fearful futures. The wound of distrust is also triggered by anything that sparks paranoia, such as perceived shady behavior in relationships, stories of scandals and deceit, the latest disease scare on the news, or stories of murder, all promoting mistrust of other people and the world. Accompanying thoughts of fear are things like, "What if blank happens? What if it goes horribly wrong? What if I get hurt or die? What if it doesn't work? What if they don't like me? What if I fail? What if I can't do it? What if they screw me over? What if I can't trust myself? This is dangerous. I'm probably gonna get hurt. They are going to hurt me. He's lying. I can't trust her. People are out to get me. They want me to fail. What if I can't make it? They have ulterior motives. I might get sick. This is scary. I wonder if I can survive this. I'm so worried about blank." Healing. While fear expressed as a caution, rational planning for the future, and respect for danger is healthy and keeps us alive, fear as a habitual life view will leave us consistently anxious about a negative future that may not ever exist. Thus, to heal the wound of distrust, we must focus on motivating our actions through a desire for a brighter future rather than our fear of a negative one. This transition is made possible by accepting humbly that the mind does not and can never know what the actual future holds. Therefore, all projections of a fearful fate are always only fabrication within the mind. The present moment is all that actually exists, and fear can only exist in the mind projecting to the imaginary future. Thus, both grief over the past and fear of the future are illusions of the mind projecting outside of the now moment, the only moment there ever is. The wound of distrust is healed by exploring the possibility that the future could, in fact, also bring desirable experiences too. The mind of fear is so stuck on only thinking about what could go wrong that it forgets to also ask, what if it goes right? Therefore, we move past fear, admitting humbly that we don't know what the future will hold, but we're open to exploring our desire for something better. New narrative. Anything is possible. The mind cannot know the future. What if it goes right? What if it all works out? What if they love me? What if I can do it? What if there's an even better outcome than I imagined? What if I can trust them? What if people do support me? I am open to goodness coming to me. I could work out. I face my fears with courage. I am optimistic. I could get what I want. The future does not exist except for in my mind. I set myself free from the fearful stories in my mind. Fear is an illusion of the mind. I have access to all the solutions and answers. I will know what to do in every moment. I will be guided. I will always be safe. I will always be protected. There is nothing to fear except fear itself. JFK. Have a great night, Jax. Thanks for stopping in. I appreciate your energy. Thanks for being here. And again, this will be posted so you can rewatch and catch up where you left off. All right. So we're moving into the theme of adequacy. So inadequacy, the wound of inadequacy. How much more do we have? Okay. Well, there's not that much left. It's only 9. I wonder how much more can I do? Hmm. Okay. Wound of inadequacy. This is a good one for me. Triggers, perceived gain, root program, I want, I need. Traumas, being withheld from, being teased or mocked, not feeling desirable, sexual trauma, societal conditioning, being objectified, poverty, comparison, primary emotion, desire, defense mechanism, overcompensating, addictions, greed, vanity, histrionic personality disorder, attention seeking, preoccupation with sex, Munchausen syndrome, media choices, law of attraction, wanderlust, pornography, status and celebrity, social media envy, clubbing, hookup culture, pleasure seeking, defense mechanism avoidance, eating disorders, repressed desires, body dysmorphia, secretive indulgences, unsure of themselves, interests and values, sex, appearances and pleasures, money, luxuries, status. Physical manifestation examples: coughs, not feeling seen or heard, aches, craving physical touch, itching, wanting and craving, reproductive organs, sexual issues, tuberculosis, self-absorbed, envious. Approach to challenges: aversion to delays, delayed gratification, spoiled tantrums, turn to substances to cope, thoughts, "I have to have it. I need more. Blank, then I'll be loved. I want to be desired. I want what they have." Healing, angry for change, tired of wanting, expectation for things to improve. What it's teaching us, wanting more for our lives, thriving, not just surviving, moving beyond our fears. Affirmations. I am tired of wanting. I will not accept less. I am ready for change. I'm tired of talking about it. I'm ready to take action. I will break free. Got noisy all of a sudden. I apologize. Oh, you're welcome, Grace. It is a good read. I love this book so much. So I think I'm just going to get through this one little piece right here, and then I'm going to go ahead and stop for the night because this is going to be a lot. We're just going to get through the wound of inadequacy. I feel like that is pretty important. So we'll move through that and we will stop at the wound of violation and pick that up next time. So we're going to go here. So the overview. As we open ourselves to the possibility that the future could also hold pleasurable experiences and not only fearful ones, we become even more invested in life and start to want. Thus, our energy, self esteem, and engagement in life are already drastically invigorated in this theme compared to those previous to it. Seeking pleasurable experiences in the form of desire can feel incredibly rewarding and satisfying to someone who started with wounds of rejection and once felt powerless. The energy of desire can be productive in the form of drive and motivation to create a better life for ourselves. However, when it gets overemphasized, it will become counterproductive in the form of greed, craving, and addiction because the wound of inadequacy, nothing is ever enough to fill the void we feel inside. Similar to the wound of loss, the major blockages of the wound of inadequacy come from placing our happiness outside of ourselves by projecting our self esteem, love, and joy onto the objects we are desiring. While the previous themes were the preoccupation with loss, now the emphasis shifts to a focus on gain. Thus, desire can become obsessive, lustful, and covetous. When the obsession with the desire leads to lack of control over ourselves, desire becomes enslaving. To know our ego has become attached and addicted to a particular desire, take the object of the desire away and see what comes up. If we are free, we will remain at peace. If not, we will either resort to a previous theme, such as grief and depression, or summon even more energy in the form of anger to force the object of desire back into our lives. Another indicator is that when the object of desire is blocked or taken away, the addict will go about their entire day, week, or month not being present with what is happening now, but instead will be fantasizing about the next time they can get a hit. For example, sex or pornography, drugs and alcohol, shopping, food, gambling, video games, etc. When we allow excessive desire to make our decisions, such as greed and seeking gain at the expense of others, we inevitably bring only suffering for ourselves. The wound of inadequacy can be even be a deterrent to the community at large. Think of all of the kings and wars throughout history, all fighting to please the desire for more power, more money, more territory, more status and fame, etc. It also demonstrates itself as the reckless, profiteering businesses that seek profit above all else, even at the expense of destroying the planet and hurting others. Unchecked desire is cancer. Death by overconsumption, overpopulation, overpollution, extreme excess until the point of its own self-destruction. The wound of inadequacy becomes enslaving by creating the belief that we are lacking until we fill the void of our desire. By projecting our security, love, and joy externally onto the object of our affection, we simultaneously give away our power and freedom, shackling ourselves to the object. The wound of inadequacy can never get enough or actually be satisfied and content. Therefore, it cannot know true peace and security. Desire will always be chasing the horizon. If we place our happiness in desire, our happiness will always be one more thing away, one more accomplishment, one more dollar, one more milestone, one more sexual conquest, one more something. Our security and sense of empowerment will forever elude us, always feeling like there is a hole and a lack. This is the source of all its suffering. The craving of addiction is coming from a deeper place of feeling incomplete, unloved, and inadequate. Thus, the porn addict seeks to be desirable and wanted. The gambler seeks to be lucky and favored. The alcoholic seeks to be carefree and beyond worries. All of these qualities are actually of the true self, but the wound of inadequacy projects these qualities as coming from the external object, thus becoming indebted to it. Through doing our inner work, it is possible to enjoy feeling appreciated, complete, loved, favored, and carefree without needing the object of desire. Thus, in its healthy form, desire can be used to motivate the next stage in our evolution of consciousness by wanting more for ourselves, for wanting true freedom and lasting happiness. Triggers. Anything that causes us to seek self worth and validation outside of ourselves will trigger the wound of inadequacy. This attachment can range from a mild expression of attention seeking or wanting more money, all the way to extreme addictions to pleasure. Common triggers will include things like status seeking, status seeking, lust, jealousy, pleasures of drugs and alcohol, gluttony, wanting to be rich, obsessing about being famous, obsession with success or materialism, or infatuation with being admired and acknowledged. Accompanying thoughts of the wound of inadequacy may sound like, I have to have it. I won't be satisfied until I get blank. I want it. I need it. I want more. I need more. I wish I had blank. I want what they have. I never have enough. How can I get more? Is he or she looking at me? Oh, that's attractive. I want it. I want to be sexy. I want to be popular. I want to be better. I want better. I can't wait until blank. Give it to me now. How can I make this even more pleasurable? Healing. To heal the wound of inadequacy, we must recognize its never content nature and its misunderstanding of how to access happiness. By placing our happiness onto the object of affection, desires infatuate us to completely overlook the fact that everything we are seeking is actually internal, to feel whole and complete. Attachment to desire misses out on the now and is never grateful for what it already does have and how far it has already come. It only sees what is next and is more desirable. Notice that soon after achieving a desire, it is quickly replaced with yet another one, and the chase begins all over again. In the moment of finally getting that high, that drink, that sex, that purchase, that fame, that job, that money, that blank, the elation eventually fades and we are left unsatisfied again. Thus, no desire is found to ever actually bring lasting satisfaction or fill the void that we feel inside. The mind will always convince us that maybe the next time will be the different one, and the craving and crave more and better. Seeking happiness through objects of desire will inevitably leave us empty handed because we ultimately misunderstand the fundamental true nature of happiness. It is a constructive In its constructive form, desire can be seen as a useful energy to motivate action, enjoy fun experiences, and set goals. Desire leads to us leads us to strive for more and seek the objects of our affection. However, it is not the object that we are after, but the unrealized aspects of ourself that we project onto the object. For example, idolizing another for their beauty, wealth, or essence isn't a validation that they have what we lack and we need to obtain it. Quite the contrary. Like a mirror, our object of affection is simply revealing what we wish to see or to be within ourselves. In its healthy expression, desire can point us in the direction of our true potential. Can you take your fur somewhere else, please? You're all up in my nose. Frick. Okay, thank you. In its healthy expression, desire can point us in the direction of our true potential. If we can take the focus off obtaining the object or affection and use it instead as a clue that is pointing us in the direction of our own truth. When we see how this process works, we can break the cycle of yearning, longing, and craving, and instead use our energy for actualizing and becoming the very thing we are grasping for. Why is it that we crave money, attraction, status, or power? Is it really to own and possess the material possessions, to be desired, or to feel a genuine sense of security and self-confidence? To live a life we feel we are deserving of, to reach our maximum potential, and to be perceived the way we perceive others. Excuse me, to be perceived by to reach our maximum potential and to be perceived the way we perceive ourselves. Thank you. Once we realize that what we are seeking in life is within us and therefore possible for us, we get frustrated that we aren't being it yet. We get tired and aggravated by the cycles of inadequacy and craving. Thus, we get angry for change and finally develop an exception for a breakthrough. New narrative. I am ready for change. I am tired of accepting less. I am tired of wanting and craving. I will not accept less. I am frustrated for freedom from this cycle. I will break free. I'm sick of talking about this. I'm ready to do something about it. I am angry for change. Uh, what I am projecting onto. What am I am projecting onto blank that I am not seeing in myself? I will actualize my potential. I expect to get what I want. I expect to be the person I really want to be. I am tired of being controlled by my circumstances. I am tired of being controlled by my addictions. I will change this. I am expecting things to improve. I refuse anything less. All right, we're up to page 172. Nice. 172 of I'm gonna blow my nose so freaking hard. 247. 172 of 247. Yeah, those are very close. So, we're getting there. I thank y'all for hanging out with me for this duration. That was a long chunk of chapter 9. I'm thinking we'll probably get chapter 9 finished, and we can probably do a chunk of chapter 10 as well. And then we'll finish chapter 10, and I think 11 is really easy. So we may have 1 or 2 more of book club for the inner work left, and that's it. So, isn't it great? I love it so much. I love it so much. And as Zen mentioned earlier, we were, conversing earlier, and he was talking about how I'm probably gonna have to read this again later once I grow and get more collective involved and, continue to cycle around. It's such a good read that I have no problem with that. It's so good. It's so worthwhile. This is, my 2nd, like, beginning to end run through, and then before that, I've already read it one time through, and then before that, I had kinda picked through it here and there, doing sections and chapters and whatnot, so been eye-opening, it's been fantastic. I thank you all for being here, for reading along with me, and again, we're going to finish chapter 9 and get a big chunk of chapter 10 done with the next reading. I'm not sure when that's gonna be. I definitely want to go and do, Lots of tarot readings tomorrow. I'm not gonna be reading from the book, but I will be doing cards online. So look for me on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. I will be all 4 places all day long tomorrow. So if I see y'all tomorrow, I am very much looking forward to it. I'm gonna be everywhere all day long. So until then, mwah. Have a wonderful evening. Thank you, Deanna. Thank you, Grace. Thank you, Zen, for all of your energy. I appreciate all of y'all for being here. Thank you, everyone else on all my other platforms for watching along. I believe, yes, there are 2 in Insta. There are a few over on YouTube. Love it. So good. So, again, I will see y'all next time. Yep. I also can't wait. And have a beautiful